So we're turning today to The Spectator because I promised you a good, well, interesting rumour. But I think that this probably could potentially happen. You have a Prime Minister who is an absolute deadlock, not only at home but abroad. You have literally a case where you have two parties trying to say, we want this customs agreement, and the EU has said, no, we're not going to accept any of those. This is an absolute deadlock, and what happens when you get this deadlock? Well, as Kathy Balls says in The Spectator, is an early election really on the cards? So, thanks to a weekend of national jubilation over Prince Harry's and marriage to Meghan Markle, politics for once has taken a back seat. However, there is only one story in the Sunday Times that will likely cause mild alarm. Tory MPs prepare for snap autumn election as Theresa May hit by Brexit deadlock. Yep, so we could be heading for yet another snap election. Hooray! So the paper reports that Conservative MPs have privately started to get ready for a snap general election. It's not that they fear Theresa May is about to go on a walking holiday and get overexcited about some better than expected polling. Instead, these Tories fear that the Brexit deadlock will soon become insurmountable for the Prime Minister. This isn't the first time this month that such a point has been made, as George Trafalgar, I think that's how you say his second name, said on Coffee House last week. Events could follow as such. A failure to win a Commons vote on numerous aspects of Brexit, notably the customs union, a vote of no confidence, Theresa May stepping down or being challenged, a new leader feeling the need for a refreshed mandate, the press and social media howling for this or that, all accumulating in a butterfly's in-tummy drive to the palace. It's true that the current Brexit deadlock is considered problematic, even to the government. Even if May manages to find a compromise that the likes of Nicky Morgan and Jacob Rees-Mogg can live with, there's no guarantee that Brussels will accept it. When such compromises start to be made on trade, one side will be left disappointment and the other will prove hard to control. This aspect of the negotiation were always going to be the most difficult. In November last year, Morgan Stanley told clients that there was a 2/3 likelihood of a snap election in the second half of 2018 once the Conservative Party starts to fracture over Brexit. What's more, I've noticed that this topic is increasingly coming up in Westminster conversations these days, but it's a lot of conversation. With Conservatives at least, the results in the almost universal negative reaction. MPs seem to agree that it would be a bad idea. Tried Adspad's joke that they might sit the next one out under the purdah, and journalists look at their holiday calendar in horror. Although the local elections weren't the disaster many Tories had feared they would be, the Conservatives remain unsure that they would win more seats than there were at a general election tomorrow. They know things could quickly turn against them, and they have also learned the hard way that the voters dislike unnecessary elections. This is why, for all the difficulties with Britain's post-Brexit customs union, an election this year still remains unlikely. In order to bring one about under the Fixed Term Parliament Act, either a motion must be passed in the Commons to dissolve the Parliament in which the number of members who vote in favour is greater than 2/3 of the number seats in Parliament, or MPs back a vote of no confidence in the sitting government, and the 14 days passes without any administration gaining or regaining that confidence. So the lack of enthusiasm for an early election and provisions in place to make it difficult to bring about one means that it is a scenario it's hard for the Tories just to stumble into. It's hard to see who, if anyone, would benefit. No matter how soft May's Brexit plans, Eurosceptics worry that an election poses more of a risk to Brexit than an indecisive PM. Remain Tories think they can rebel without it coming to this. For all this noise, a large chunk of the party falls into the stop banging on about Europe tribe. They are unlikely to let any emotional colleagues bring down the government without a fight. Number 10, meanwhile, believe that the threat of a government collapse could be enough to get an unruly PMs to play ball. Of course, this could all be a grave misjudgment, and the Tories end up with no choice but to go to the polls. However, given the lack of appetite for one, and the vast majority of the Conservatives will be doing anything they can to prevent this scenario, no matter how bad the Brexit negotiations go. So, yeah, another early election. It's highly likely. I wouldn't be surprised. Particularly, remember, to have all this stuff actually sorted out, we have to have the comparative view of what Brexit is, and I am laughing because so far the government doesn't have a plan on what Brexit will be to actually take to the European Union for them to say, what, you know, the European can't decide on nothing, and we are at the point now where Theresa May, and I made this point a couple of weeks ago, Theresa May has to make hard yes or no choices. And that is the decision where she is now in. And remember, this not only has to go through our parliament, it has to go through all the other 27 EU parliaments also have to agree to this. So, and you've got a very hard choice of Ireland vetoing it if it results in a hard border between the north and south of Ireland. That is a very objective reality, and as they have stated from the very beginning, and the EU will back them on that. All the EU countries are, united in that push. And as has been so many, as these guys, the Brexiteers, cried so often that, oh, it will be fine. When it comes to the crunch, what will happen is that all the companies will rally together and say, no, you've got to do a deal. Well, as we pointed out a couple of months ago, all these businesses have said, no, we'd rather keep the single market. And they have basically said, yeah, look, if the single market damages our companies in Britain and all these other areas, well, we're just going to leave. You've got Japan who, prior to the referendum, put in a lot of money into the UK in terms of investment. They are super annoyed that we're going to leave because that's money down the drain as far as they're concerned. They are now putting all their investments into other countries in Europe. But, you tell people the reality of what, post-Brexit life will be like for the UK, and there's just this denial and this just belief in this, fantasy that we'll all get unicorns, it'll be fine. No, it won't. And the lack of denial of reality is what's truly scary about all this.